online conversation with Ravi Jain, artistic director of Why Not Theatre, and one of the great innovators in Toronto and in Canada, working to bring new voices into theatre and working with other artists to really change the way that artists engage in the public spaces and making public spaces more open for artists and supporting them in the very difficult choice they've made to become artists. I'm so excited to have Ravi, who you and I met 9 years ago through a program called Diversity Fellows Program run by an organization called Civic Action. And since then, I've been a regular attendee of Why Not plays. And I know that at some point in the not too distant future, we will all get the chance to go to some of your work, either at the Shaw Festival in Niagara-on-the-Lake or elsewhere, including in Toronto. My name is Kareem Bardisi. I'm the executive director of the Ryerson Leadership Lab. Folks on the online feel free to either show your videos or not. We're going to be in conversation with Ravi for the next hour or so, and then we'll take a break. And I'll just share the screen quickly here to show you kind of to show our students what the plan is. We'll be in conversation with Ravi for the next hour or so with questions from students. And then we'll take a break and then come back for up to 2 hours of leadership work with the Making the Future students of this class through the Ryerson Leadership Lab, Ryerson Faculty of Arts, and the Chang School of Continuing Education. I really appreciate people's willingness to join this conversation given some of the circumstances, and I know we'll get a bit at the circumstances in this hour and then definitely in the subsequent hours. With that, I'll throw over to Raylan Guppy, teaching assistant for Making the Future and marketing and communications lead for the Ryerson Leadership Lab, and a aficionado and I believe a minor in musical theater and other of the arts that we might be discussing today. And I'll throw it to Braylon to help lead this conversation with Ravi for the next hour.
Cool. Great. Hi, Ravi.
Hi.
And hello, 69 participants that are online. This should be fun. It's an exciting time to talk about theater and art, and an important time to talk about those. And there's truly, in I think the lab's opinion, and definitely in my opinion, no better person to talk to about it than you, Ravi, because of your mission and the work that you do that Kareem already alluded to. So thank you so much for joining us. We're really excited to have you.
Thank you.
So the conversation today is going to kind of be broken up. We'll talk for a bit, and then we're going to throw it to our students have prepared a series of questions for you as well that maybe to kind of bridge the chaos, I will credit the questioner when we get to that point and read their question aloud. But maybe we'll just get started if that's cool. So first, you are not only a director, a playwright, you're a theater creator and an artist in so many ways, but theater seems to be your main outlet. So can you tell us a bit about why theater what makes theater the best outlet for your creative work and the stories that you're trying to tell?
Yeah, so again, thanks so much everybody for tuning in. What funny times we are in. It's funny being on this thing because I don't know whether my eye looks to myself versus looking in the camera, so I don't know where to look. I guess if I'm looking here, I'm looking right at you, which might be so yeah, I think for me, I'll just take a quick step back just to say I started a theater company called Why Not Theater in 2007. And, it's been a really interesting journey because we've grown from being just me to this year, we became a team of 10 people with an operating budget of $3 million with no venue. And I only mention that because that kind of growth in the arts is really difficult to achieve. And a big reason why we achieved it, or we have been achieving it, is because we're not just a theater company. So to come to your question, for me, the business that we're in is change making, and storytelling is just a tool to do that. And for me, theater is really about, and the moment that we're in is really, we can't gather. And it is the way that we gather people to really try to understand the world that we're in and try to change it. And so a lot of my inspirations growing up in the theater were not traditional. They weren't Stratford, they weren't Shaw, they weren't the classics. I didn't grow up going to the theater. I grew up with theater was the stories my immigrant parents told around the dining room table about the good old days, and the stories of culture and trying to navigate their stupid kids who are artists and don't speak their language, and the songs of home. And all of that was just mixed, and that was theater. That was the loudest, funniest story won the room. And that was culture, that was home, that was really helped shape who I became. And so that's why I feel it's necessary, because it's those stories that we tell that shape our national identity, how we understand how we relate to each other. You know, I was saying earlier on the call, the story that we're believing in now is obviously of this coronavirus is changing how we relate to each other. I went for a walk today and I was saying how it's so strange. At the red light, you look at the other person, you make eye contact, and you naturally just take a step apart because of this fear of this virus, which is very real. It's a real thing, and we're trying to navigate and understand how to do it. So anyways, those stories we tell are fundamental for me to democracy, to us really trying to understand who we are and how we relate to this world and how we relate to each other. And so why not, I'll just to say, why not? We basically do three things. We make and tour our work, and that work challenges the status quo of who gets to tell the story and what stories are being told. So in general, what that means is it challenges, you know, who can be an artist. So my mother, who's a 60-year-old, 70-year-old immigrant mother who's has no formal acting training, we created a show together. I made a show with a journalist. I'm currently making a show with David Suzuki and his wife. So these are not people who you would necessarily consider actors, but they have stories to tell, and they're equally as important as me, a trained actor who makes a living that way. We've made shows like Hamlet with a deaf actor in a lead role. So again, changing our perceptions of who gets to tell the story and what stories are being told and how they're being told. And the innovation in that really is about opening up our mind to the possibilities of, again, what stories are out there and the power of the storyteller. And traditionally, particularly in Canada, we've privileged one voice to lead that story. And I think it's important, again, if we're in a democracy, that we diversify and include multiple perspectives in those stories. So we make and tour work. We share our resources to support the work of other artists. So as I was growing a company, it was really important for me to recognize that as I grew, as we grew, we had more power and privilege. So how do we enable more artists to have a voice and create opportunities for more people to tell their stories? And the third thing we do is we provoke. So we make, we share, we provoke. And provoke is about changing the sector. And that is really thinking outside the box to, you know, trying to reshape the landscape of the sector. It's a really problematic sector. There are a lot of inequities. Those inequities have to do with race, gender, ability, all the things that we are facing in the real world. They happen in the arts, ta-da, we're the real world. And so we're really trying to make major systemic changes, not only in regards to the lives of artists, but with the lives of audiences. So for example, for the last eight or 9 years, I've been producing work in Toronto that is international, from abroad, that isn't in English. So we've been producing shows from India, from Brazil, from Japan, from Iran, all shows that are done in languages from those countries because English is a major barrier to audiences. We've innovated around pricing models for ticketing to create more access for audiences. And one of the things I'm really excited about now is our big question is, can we make space free for artists in Canada? And how we're doing that is we partnered with property developers, we partnered with community centers, and we've created a structure. We have a report, actually, I'll send it to you, Braylon and Kareem, and you can send it around, where we've piloted basically taking underutilized spaces in Toronto and turning them into temporary rehearsal halls and saving a shit ton of money for artists. activating underutilized spaces and colliding arts with the regular people, because we tend to be separated from society. So again, I tell those things really to show that we're not just about shows, we're really about change and trying to change the system and create access for audiences, artists, in order to just find that intersection between art, politics, and society, and keep art relevant, because I believe fundamentally it's a very necessary tool in the dialogue that we're having in cities, countries, provinces, global, everything.
Yeah, and it goes back to that kind of piece that you talked about. We all read A Brimful of Asha too. It was assigned to our class to read prior to you coming and speaking today. And it comes into those types of, and that question that you talked about, you are talking and sharing stories about communities of people. Even this story is just a very personal story to you about you and your mother, and her attempt to arrange your marriage, but it's still a commentary on a larger piece. It's a commentary about what is cultural distancing, or you're a Canadian, but she sees herself as very much more tied to her home and culture. So how do you do that as a theater company? How do you tell the story of you and as the individual, but connect it to the larger community of people whom you're serving or speaking to?
I think that I would answer that by saying, I think something I've been thinking about a lot about what makes Why Not unique, and maybe how I approach your question unique to most people, is I find Canadians annoying. And I find them annoying because there's a tendency to want to create what's the word I'm looking for? Non-conflict. And there's a desire for non-conflict through the idea that everything is the same. We're all the same. We all have the same experiences. I'm all for equity. I believe in equity. I believe that we are all equal as humans, but we are absolutely not the same. And it's a lie to say that we are. The one thing that we have in common is that we are different. I can never understand the realities of the experience. Hello. Hi, Mom. Hello, Auntie. Hi, Auntie. Nice to see you.
Sorry, I'm just showing her.
It's a nice teaching way, because
Oh my God.
it's more
So great.
it's more socialization.
Right? Look at how many friends your daughter has. It's amazing.
you get to know actually the people.
Yeah, I'm so sorry. Okay, he's talking. Okay, continue, please. Sorry.
No problem. Yeah, I would say, like, we're all different, and I can never understand the realities of what it is to be a woman, or a woman of color, or an Indigenous person, and to reduce it to, oh, well, no, I have a mom and we're all the same. No, we're not. I can speak to the specifics of my context, the specifics of my world perspective, and the more specific I am, the more it will resonate across to different people, different communities, and they will see parts of themselves in it, but nowhere in there am I saying we're the same. We will have similarities, but the more specific I can be about the uniqueness of my situation and the differences that I feel that I have, it will resonate much stronger and more authentically with people in a broader way than the desire to say, no, we all feel pain. We're all the same. No, we all have moms. We're all the same. No, we're not. Actually, some people have terrible relationships with their mothers. Noor clearly doesn't. No, I'm kidding. Sorry, I'm teasing. No, but some people do, and some people have great relationships. Some people don't know their mothers. But through that experience, they will recognize parts of themselves in parts of that experience, and no one is forcing them to feel like they need to have my experience in order to understand themselves. And so for me, the fundamental is to appreciate difference, to celebrate difference, to accept difference, is to actually be a bit more, to be more honest about a more inclusive and diverse society through difference, not sameness. It's really false to equate us all as the same, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, that is a better or interesting way of looking at that question. I mean, after going to see your show, I watched some of the videos about people's responses to it after, and people being like, oh, I'm Team Asha because I believe in this, or because my mom did this. And it is, you're right, those differences that draw similarities across people sometimes. But to stay on Asha a little bit, what was it like working with your mom? What responsibilities did you feel like you had when telling that kind of autobiographical story? Because there are very heated moments in your play of true tension between the two of you, the true culture clash and generational clash. So what was that like, writing that and performing it?
You know, it was really fun. My mom has a very good sense of humor. So when I approached her, I said, you know, I'm going to tell the world what a bad mother you are. I'm going to make a play about you and I'm going to perform you. And she was like, you know, you're an idiot. If I got on stage and the audience saw my side, they would see how terrible a son I have. And, you know, they would all side with me. And so I thought, okay, let's do this. Let's get us together on stage. And what would that be? And what's been amazing about it is to watch an audience respond to my mother and embrace not only her, but her point of view. And in the writing of it and in the telling of it, you know, for me, it was very important that she was the star of the show and that her point of view also was the star, because I knew for the most part, everyone's coming in a Western society, everyone's coming in seeing her view as the negative one. We've all seen the movies, we've all heard the bad stories. We know that or we all feel like we have a point of view that is, she is wrong. And so in the telling of it, in the shaping of it, and it's all a very true story. It was important that her point of view was celebrated and given the breadth it needed to be given the space it deserves. So process-wise, it was a ton of fun, man. Like, you know, seeing every night, you know, my mom made audiences like belly laugh. I trained for years at school to do that. And she just was able to do that and laugh very authentically and hard. And, you know, that's an amazing, amazing thing to see and experience. And so many people coming up and falling in love with my mother, it just gives me gave me a different appreciation for her, for the point of view, and how fun this thing called theater can be. We actually built a spin-off called Like Mother, Like Daughter. And I'm wondering if I can share my screen. I have a video of that. So that was an improvised conversation with real mothers and daughters. And the question was, here, I'm just looking for it. The question was, what are all the things you've wanted to ask your mom or daughter and never had the ability to ask? And what it is they come to a table and ask questions in an improvised way of all the questions you've ever wanted to ask your mom or daughter. And then the audience shares a big meal afterwards. So maybe if you could ask a question, I'll try to find the video of that.
Yeah, no, totally. I might even actually just steal one of the student questions that might be kind of one to fill the space. Or Kozar asks, how did you prepare for your roles that you've ever done? And do you recommend any specific methods to meditate or reduce the work stress that comes with it?
Can you ask me that again? Sorry, I got distracted.
How do you prepare for the roles that you do? Some of them personal, some of them not.
Yeah.
Do you recommend any specific methods to meditate or reduce the stress that comes with working in that space?
Yeah, so I don't act as much anymore, as much as I want to. I'm more of a director. But the thing about preparing for a role is, as you get older is to trust time and the process. And, you know, preparing for a role is really about rehearsals in the room and the time you take and spend in the room with your collaborators. And also outside the room of just rehearsing on your own, asking questions and thinking through the choices that you're making. Because a lot of fear, like any fear, comes from when you don't know something. And inevitably, when you're in front of an audience, there's always the unknown because anything can happen. But the more prepared you are, the more you can trust that you've done all the work to support you when things go off the rails. It just makes you feel better. I mean, you're always nervous, and also the more times the more time you get on stage and the more time you put yourself in the situation of the unknown, the more you start to embrace fear and see it as a friend and not something to be afraid of. In terms of things to calm myself, again, I think it's really about breathing is important. And I'm constantly reviewing all the things. So if I'm performing, I'm memorizing lines. If I'm going to give a presentation, I'm like going over and through everything over and over and over. And the repetition tends to calm me. And again, it just reminds me that I've done the work, so I don't need to be afraid. I found the video. How would I share my screen to do that?
In the very bottom of your window, do you have a little share screen icon? Yeah, if you click that, we should all be able to see what's on.
There you go. Let's try this. Tell me.
That works.
What do you think?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so this is a show called Like Mother, Like Daughter. It's real life conversations between mothers and daughters. So this is a trailer for the show. So it's not the actual show, but it will give you an example of the feeling of what the show was.
I'm going to read the cards in the order I find them. Mum, you will answer.
I am going to ask you the next 20 questions in rapid fire.
What does it mean to be a good person?
If you could give me one piece of parenting advice, what would it be?
Was I well behaved as a child? Do you think we value the same things in life?
What is your biggest regret? Do you think you would survive alone in the wilderness? Do I annoy you? Yeah.
Does my love for you ever feel like pressure?
I wouldn't say pressure. What I would say is because I don't live at home, sometimes it's like, when are you coming home? Why are you doing this? Where are you going?
If I wasn't related to you, would you like me?
Yes, but I'd probably find you really annoying also.
Is your relationship with your mother similar to our relationship?
I've never talked to her so openly as you talk to me.
I got to know my dad when I was older, and he was the most amazing man. I mean, I could actually start to cry about this because he was. And I wish that I'd known him better earlier.
What about me do you not understand?
Why you hoard paper.
Do you have to be tough to survive?
Yes, I think so. And especially a mother who is in my situation has to be tough.
I'm very proud of the work that I've done in my life. My children are my greatest achievement.
That's the end of the game. Thank you all for playing. And would everybody now please join us for something to eat?
So the audience, they play a game, and then afterwards they all have a big meal together. And the meal is actually, for me, the best part of the show. So the audience has been watching these mothers and daughters tell these stories and answer these questions, and they're sitting silently. So at the dinner, they're like, they want to tell their own stories, or they want to ask questions. And you know, again, it's like being at someone's, at a great dinner party, just good conversation and good questions about trying to understand each other.
Yeah, no, that's super cool. We should all do that with our mothers, I guess, in some way, shape, or form. But seeing that, I guess I have two mixed feelings. One, I'm like, that's amazing. That's what theater is. That's the spirit of live theater, being able to, you know, break bread and touch and feel and see the people next to you and the people on stage. But right now, we can't really do that in this world of COVID and our inability to gather. So how are you adapting as a theater creator in Toronto, and how are we going to, when this is over, how important and in what streams can we see art and connect to art after this is over? Like, what stories will we need to tell then, and in what capacities?
Yeah, I mean, I would say, you know, right now is a really sad time. It's super hard for a lot of people, especially artists. I mean, you know, a lot of, like I said, right? We do what we do with an audience of people, and yeah, I mean, so it is a sad time. I don't yet know how we're adapting. We're all trying to figure that out right now. And right now the ground is still shifting beneath us, so we're not really sure. It is super interesting, though, to remember that a lot of people are turning to artists right now via music or Netflix or film. And that is one thing. Oh, my phone is ringing. Sorry, my phone is about to ring. I don't know how my computer does this thing. So people are turning to the arts, music, film. I think too, people are telling stories. There's just more time at home, and people are reconnecting in ways where stories of their experiences, of their sadness in isolation, of their joy in isolation. I think those stories are going to turn into something. I'm not sure what, but at least I think it's just, for me, it's important to remember that those, that simple action that we're all engaging with is the art. Culture, you know, culture thousands of years ago was something that we as humans created. We didn't consume it. We didn't buy it. We made it. We were in control of it. It didn't shape us. We shaped it. And hopefully we can remind ourselves as a humanity that we are doing that every day, and we don't need to always look to stars or famous people to do that, that our stories are important, and what you are all going through is important. And all of those stories are going to be fundamental to us looking back and understanding what the fuck we were going through. Because we're not going to understand. Sorry, Mom. Sorry, Auntie. We're not going to know. We don't know. It's too fresh, and we're all full of emotion right now. So an important part of processing it is going to be all the stories that we tell. And how that's disseminated, I don't know. But we also are in an amazing time of TikTok, of Instagram, of Facebook Live, of the thing that we're doing right now. So, you know, it's already emerging. Art is a creative act. And the fact that you're all figuring out ways to gather and figure it out, that is art too. Of course, it's different from, you know, a song or a painter. Yes, those are different things, and that is the sadness of suffering that we're in. But in the meantime, as humans figure out communication and connection, that something new will be born of this. It just will. And at the same time, those old forms won't go away, because they never have. They just won't. They will change in some kind of way, but we're just not there yet to know which direction it should go.
Fair enough. I guess we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah.
But I'm going to turn over to, we have lots of great student questions. So I'm going to turn to them, and again, credit the questioner, If they're there, I guess give a wave, but I'm not sure. It's hard to tell at this view, but who's here online. So I'll just say them. This is from Susanna. She says, we've spoken a lot in class about how leadership always involves failure and learning to grow from failure. In today's kind of high achieving social media intensive environment, where we're always kind of comparing achievements to others, it's really hard to accept it sometimes. So in light of all this, what skills or lessons have you learned that have helped you to embrace the mentality of not being afraid to fail? And can you speak to some of those real life examples of times in life when things didn't necessarily go as you expected, but you grew from them anyways?
So I'm a bit of an idiot in a lot of ways. And I think that's been a saving kind of grace for me, is I just put myself in really situations that are over my head. I don't know how I do it. I'm not really thinking straight, I guess. I just walk backwards into things. And so I guess I've gotten used to failure, and really early in life, for whatever reason, failure became a friend. And I just success and failure for me, honestly, they're really not very different. And when I would say when I really learned that, as I went to this theater school, and it was in French, and, I had pretty good French, but when you're in France and surrounded by French, it takes some time to really adjust. So particularly in the early days, we do a lot of improv. And so the teacher would go, blah, 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 blah. First one go. And then I'd get up, and I had no idea what we're supposed to do, but I was just up. And part of why I was up was I knew that I would get a second go around because there were 30 people in the class. So if I did the math right, I could get a second go at this. So better to fail now and then figure it out as you go. And it created amazing situations where you would just get up and I made an ass of myself. Sometimes I got it right, and wow, you figured it out. Other times you just slammed so hard against the wall that you just kind of embraced the fact that you and the wall are friends. So for me, over time, success and failure really didn't. I believe that they are similar. And I think that for me, a recent failure was we had to let someone go. And now, we're a new team, and we're 10 people, and we had to let someone go. And we had an exit interview where, we sat down and we asked hard questions about, like, how was the workplace, all this stuff. And we received some really strong feedback about our ability to give feedback. And it highlighted a failure in our leadership team, and how we gave feedback to this person that really led them astray and created a disconnect of understanding of what kind of a job they were doing. And when we debriefed, we said, wow, that was a real failing on our part. And I said, yeah. And it's important that we, again, accept and embrace this. And we accepted responsibility and spoke to the person and spoke directly to it. And I think what I said was, I was proud that in receiving the feedback, no one got defensive. And I think that's kind of the thing for me about failure, is you need to find your own approach and your own way to embrace the feedback, embrace and understand what went wrong, and what role, and really try to spend time understanding what role one plays in that, or that I played in that other individuals play in that. And in accepting that, you'll find the way through that, as opposed to defending it, rejecting it, or dismissing it. Because there's I don't know if I'm answering the question. I think for me, it was embracing the feedback that we got and trying to really reflect in myself my accountability in that, accepting it and moving through it rather than trying to go around it or excuse it or imagine it wasn't there or that person's crazy or it's just one person's opinion. No, we're all in it, and we, moving through it is the big thing, I think. So embracing the failure and really owning it, not shying away from it. Look at fucking Trump. The guy is a great example of failure in leadership and accountability. To say that, oh, I always thought this thing was fine, a problem, when we know he didn't, like, his rejection and inability to see his own flaws is a massive, massive failure of leadership. But I definitely don't need to tell this group that for sure.
No,
I hope that answered the question.
Yeah, totally. This one is from Yasmin. In your experience as a former Soul Pepper Associate Artistic Director who was brought in to implement changes to the organization, yet learned the actions did not reflect these goals, did you feel like you were letting people get down? How were you able to leave this position? We read the piece that was what happened to Ravi Jain at Soul Pepper.
Oh, what a terrible article. What a terrible title. Like, what were they going for? What happened to Ravi Jain? Yeah, man, that was hard. So in terms of failure, that was a great learning for me. Oof. Where to even start with that?
Let's go deep. Let's go deep.
Was I letting people down was the question?
Yeah, that was part of the question.
Yeah, that was a big
letting people down. That
was a big part of why I was staying. I lasted about 6 months. And that was definitely a pressure I felt, for some context.
Yeah, explain what Soul Pepper is.
Yeah, for some context. So at the time, Soul Pepper was this, it still is, but at the time it's a major national institution. It's a theater company based in Toronto. It was led at the time by a guy named Albert Schultz, who was a very highly regarded artistic director in the country. Soul Pepper was a company that had a lot of notoriety and a lot of power in the theater sector, in the ecology. And, at the time it was a $12 million organization. And so just for some context, there are few companies, like I mentioned at the start of this conversation, there is no company actually in the last 20 years to do that. And to have the power and weight that they had was pretty phenomenal. And so for me, the opportunity that I had in the job that I had as an associate artistic director, I would be the first person of color, or I was the first person of color in the history of the country, in the history of arts in Canada, to have a position that high at a building that was $12 million plus. And so that was driving a lot of why I took the job. I thought, oh, wow, here's the ticket. Like, I'm doing the thing that I said I would do. And I've always, I don't think this anymore, but at the time I believed that change happened top down. I was driven to go into an institution and I wanted to run it and take those resources and redistribute and Robin Hood it all to the people who I felt were just not getting access. And so that really drove a lot of why I took the position and why I was fighting to stay there. And of course there was a ton of pressure for me because so many people were saying, what the fuck are you doing? Don't go in there. They don't have a reputation of doing what they say. They're going to use you and take you out of the community, and we need you in the community because the work that you're doing is supporting this, that, the other. I said, no, I'll manage it. I'll be fine. It's like, if anyone's going to do it, it's going to be me. I created stories to believe the story I wanted to believe. And when I realized I was not going to, when I realized my biggest fear, which is that I was a token and that I wasn't there to actually do what I was given the power to do, or told I was going to do. Man, it was hard. And I thought I'm never going to win. It's the system. And I've always been a kind of person who thinks in terms of systems. And I saw, well, this is a microcosm of the whole system. So either I leave the theater, or I do the thing that everybody's been telling me and build a whole new system. And that's what I did. And so that's from the day I left Soul Pepper, I put everything back into Why Not, and now we've grown a company. We've created a new groundbreak in that in the history of independent theater in Canada, there has been very few companies to break the $1 million mark without a venue. And that's what we've done, is we don't have a venue, and we're carving a new territory of company. And now we have to do a lot of advocating to make room for more people to achieve this level of success and really change how people think theater companies work. So it's a new kind of work, but I'm really grateful for it because, you know, for a lot of people, myself included, I didn't know that there was another path.
Can I just chime in a bit and tell me if I'm wrong, but one of the things that was interesting that happened at Soul Pepper after you left, there were some other issues at Soul Pepper that resulted, and we don't need to explore those here, but it's well documented, and we can send around articles, resulted in the resignation of the artistic director. And the now current artistic director is a woman of color. Is it possible that what you went through in some ways created space for that to ultimately happen? Because you elevated the issue, or no?
No, I think mine was quiet. You know, that article came out after everything fell. I was afraid, really. I didn't know how to speak out. I didn't really have an avenue because the system beat me. And I knew if I said anything, I wasn't going to win. And those 4 women who came out, I mean, they...
A sexual harassment scandal.
Yeah. Their courage and their putting their necks on the line is why I chose to come out after, was to also take the heat off of them and say, hey, this conversation is broader than just this. If you want to have a go at people, have a go at me. And you know, what's amazing about what those women did is, yes, the new artistic director, it's amazing. She's now the first woman of color to run an institution of that scale in the history of this country. That's amazing. And she deserves that opportunity. And frankly, in Toronto alone, after that artistic director went down, we now only have 2 white male artistic directors, only one who is a straight white man who's running a building. Now, no disrespect to straight white men, but that's a big revolution. That's a change of leadership in a very short time, when historically people were screaming at how that single perspective was excluding a whole branch of people and voices and form. And so, you know, that it's amazing. It's stunning. And again, like this COVID, we're still in a moment where we're trying to understand and figure out what all the ramifications of that, what will come from this change. We don't know still, but it's exciting. It's exciting to see people get an opportunity to lead, and they're leading buildings. They have resource. And of course that happens the year that COVID happens.
Timing. Okay, great. We're running low on time, but I think we have about 3 more student questions that I want to try and get in here. If you're okay, Ravi, maybe we'll go just a little over 7. Is that okay?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay. So this one's from Johnson. Considering public issues / politics and art can be intertwined, like you've already spoken about, do you feel as though there is a limitation in discussing complicit struggles in the world? And if so, why?
Can you say that again, please?
Sure. So considering that public issues and politics / politics and art can be intertwined to express, do you feel as though there is a limitation in discussing the complicit struggles of the world? And if so, why? And if not, why not?
What do you mean by the complicit struggles of the world?
If Johnson's on the call, I don't want to speak for him, but if he's here, he's welcome to speak. But kind of the everyday, I guess, the everyday kind of struggle.
I need help understanding the question.
Johnson?
Johnson, are you here?
Is it in the chat bar?
It isn't, but I can put it in there.
Johnson's here, but he's muted. But maybe let's go on to the next one then.
Sure.
Yeah.
Johnson, we'll figure out a way for you to ask your question. Then Laura asks, how do you stay inspired to continue failing, like you've already talked about, and being disruptive?
Oh, man. You know, a great quote I read way back in my university days when I was a youngin', as you all. It's, I think, a quote from St. Augustine. Hope gave birth to two beautiful daughters, anger and courage. Anger for the way things are and courage to change them. And that always stuck with me. Like, that always drove me. I think I'm an angry person. I get angry a lot. And as I've grown older, actually, the anger it's amazing getting older, Kareem, eh? And I'm making an assumption for Doug there. It's amazing because you anger, it changes. You know, when you're young, it's fuck this, fuck that, flap the computer, I'll throw. When I met Kareem, actually, I almost burned the Shaw Festival down. Like I literally almost was, I was in a car with bricks in my car. Like I was going to smash it down because they kind of screwed me over. So I was always angry, and that anger was motivated to make change. I was always motivated by injustice. And I think righting injustices. When I was a kid, Muhammad Ali, Gandhi, Martin Luther King, like those were the people I chose to do research projects on. Those were the documentaries I watched and were moved by and resonated with me. Malcolm X and Muhammad Ali, man, listen to their speeches. For me, the logic behind the thinking, the ferocity of uncompromising standards really spoke to me and motivated me to be as ferocious in the face of injustice. And, you know, when you're in those situations, failure is meaningless because if you don't try, well, then what do you stand for? And I just think you can't, a failure was never an option because if I didn't try, I just couldn't, I wouldn't be able to face that the next day. And so there have been times when I didn't speak and I didn't, you know, what killed me at Soul Pepper was I'd be in meetings and I wouldn't speak. And for the time I was there, I would come home crying going, who the hell am I? What do I stand for if I'm going to let that be the dominating philosophy of these choices? So the failure was to not speak. And so I think the more you can fuel your passion, the more you can, I tell this to acting, whenever I teach an acting class, you know, acting is such a strange art form because we use the imagination and we have to make things feel like they're real. And there are a lot of ways to do that. And one of the flaws I say to actors is when you pretend, it's false, right? I pretend, it doesn't mean anything to me. But I say to actors, when you're hungry, you will eat. You'll do, if you were very hungry right now, you would do whatever you could to figure out a way to get nourishment in your body. And it will be a physical, real thing. And so as an actor, we have to play tricks to create that same need to make it a real thing that forces me to use these words to communicate. So in terms of failure and action, it's like, if we can deepen our need and our hunger and make it as visceral as hunger, to stop injustice or whatever it is that motivates you, if you can live your fullest self and allow yourself to embody that spirit in your fullest way, man, that's what it is to be human. That's what it is to be a person. And that's for me as an artist, what I want to activate people to be, their fullest selves, their most passionate, imaginative selves about whatever you're passionate about. The more we can live that, the more we'll inspire others to do that. And that's the society we want to live in. That's what I want from a leader. God, I want clarity and of purpose, of meaning, and I want fire. Or else what are we doing? We're just phoning it in. We're just showing up. When I used to teach a lot back in the day, and I'd say, enough is not enough. Don't just do enough. Yeah, that's enough. I just did enough. Like, what are you doing? Why did you show up? What a waste of your time to do enough. Do your best. Do the best that you can do. You know what I mean? And that motivation comes from the fire within, from a desire. And desire comes from belief. And you have to believe in something. You really have to believe in it. And that's why, again, imagination is such a powerful tool. Uh-oh, did I lose everybody? No.
Oh, we're all here.
My Skype opened randomly.
We have a ton more student questions. Can we
Go ahead.
fit some more in?
Cut me off. I talk too much.
No, that's beautiful. There's a chat that people are loving this. So thank you. We're in overtime.
This next one is from Dana. She's asking, what media are you consuming on a daily basis?
BBC, New York Times, a lot of news, CBC, standard news. I'm trying to stay off Facebook. I'm finding Facebook is really bringing me down these days, and it's really not a healthy place for me right now. So I'm really trying to stick to Washington Post, BBC, New York Times, all on my phone.
And what do you read for pleasure when it's not in the news?
Right now, I am reading the Mahabharata over and over because I'm adapting that. So Mahabharata is an ancient Indian epic, which, friends, it couldn't be more freaking relevant right now. And funny enough, it's one of the oldest stories ever told. It's 4,000 years old. It kept alive because of an oral storytelling tradition. And of course, it deals with these epic, hugely epic themes that are about our existence. And that's where we are right now, isn't it? So it's pretty profound to be able to spend time with a text like that and a story like that, and to be trying to adapt it into now. It's helping me a lot, and also bringing me a lot of sadness.
Trying to get through these student questions. Faizan asks, how did you learn and unlearn, in brackets, creative freedom in a world with branded theater campaigns, seasonal shows, and general corporate influence in the arts?
Well, I started with the unlearning. I started with the creative, ferocious spirit, I guess. I've been blessed to have trained under masters. And by masters, I mean, people who pioneered movements in the arts. In New York in the 60s, in late 50s, 60s was a hotbed of innovation and really groundbreak for blurring the lines between dance, between installation and art and theater and film. And I got to work with those people who were crazy. I mean crazy. Like, they had to be a little bit insane to just do what they did. And I really took that on, that spirit on from really key mentors who were just chaotic and crazy, just like inspired a kind of lunacy that really I take a lot of pleasure in. So, and also, one of my favorite classes in university was it was called Radical Street Theater. And I learned about how theater was at the heart of political revolutions all around the world, in Brazil, in India, in Thailand, in Latin America, all throughout Latin America, Europe, like in Africa. It upturned governments. This thing called theater brought people together to overthrow governments. And I mean, I was like, wow, this shit is real. This shit has power. And the fact that people, that didn't happen at those revolutions. And so the spirit of what I make is always trying to keep a hold of that spirit in the containers of the corporate that I'm in. And that collision for me has been continues to be an exciting pursuit. But we all have to keep an eye on that. I mean, we all do. Like I said, culture is something that right now we consume. And for me, part of the thing I'd like to try to keep a handle on is I'm a creator of that culture. So I need to keep one hand on the wheel. So I just hold on to lunacy and constantly am looking to challenge my own assumptions and the status quo's assumptions. And usually those are motivated by challenging the power structures. And that's always fun.
Great. This one is from Allie. She asked, do you think it's imperative for artists to be multifaceted in today's art world? And how do you see, you touched on this a little bit, but how do you see COVID affecting the art world? Will artists have to be more multidisciplinary and work outside of their field?
I don't know yet the answer to that. I mean, probably, but yes, probably. I don't know how. Artists are multifaceted people. One of the exciting things of when I met Kareem was through this program called the Diversity Fellows. And like I said, for me, theater is always about change making. And a lot of artists, I think, are disempowered in today's society to think that they're just artists. Oh, yeah. We go to see you on Friday nights. Good job. Like, you make us laugh. You make us cry. You sing real well. But, artists are, we have a creative sensibility and a way of critical thinking that is exciting if applied in different ways. And that's what I've strived to do as an artist, engaging in different public forums to try to keep art at the center of the conversation, not as a satellite. And often it is. And I believe that part of that is because we're just separated from you all as people. How many of you actually get to collide with artists? How many of us get to actually collide with you? It's rare. And the sad part is what starts to happen, and I can speak to this because I'm growing an organization, what starts to happen is because we're soliciting donations, our engagement with the other sectors is the business world. And it's that rich, white, elite world that is the system that we're trying to change. And we're actively trying to find ways around that. But yeah, I think so for me, it's like, how do we engage in that problem, and how do we collide more with normal people, and how do you all see art as relevant in your lives? And, you know, can you one day need the theater? Can you choose it as an evening out? Amidst all the barriers on your time, the pressures on your wallet, I empathize and appreciate. I don't yet know how to figure out how to empower artists to engage with the world that you are all in, and for the world that you are all in to see artists as valuable.
Amazing. We'll ask one more. I know we're a little over, but this one comes from Sydney, and it might be a good way to end. Do you think that there is anything that we, as young people, as people that are participating in this webinar too, in this class, can do now to support theater actors here in Toronto and in the arts in this time of uncertainty?
Yeah, I don't know yet because it's so new. I mean, look, I think we're all in similar boats. I'm sure you all can't go to school. You all must have jobs that you can't go to. Or some of you do and some of you don't. And we're all, this is one where we all have a similar situation. What can you do? You can, you can actively think about it. Because I know if you're actively thinking about it, I believe in young people, and you will find the solution that it will be better than me. And as long as you're actively thinking about it, you will find a solution. You will find your own way to do something. And it isn't just money. Money is one thing. It's not transactional. I think the deepest thing you could possibly do is consider deeply developing a relationship with the arts. That would go a long way, because that's a longer term plan. This is not a short-term play here. This is going to be something that is going to have dominoes for at least realistically 2-3 years. Realistically, right? Like, this is not, I mean, if we're not going back to the same, that's for certain. We're not going back to the same. So I think it's really deeper than what can you do in this moment, which is welcomed, obviously, and very grateful that you would even ask. And I would turn and say, look deeper to form a deeper relationship to the arts, and that will sustain you for the long run, and it will help you find the best solution that you can come up with for now.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Well, I'm so sorry for, we have like 100 questions, but it's also 7:14, so we might need to wrap up. Hey, Kareem?
Can we do 2 more?
Sure, I'm in.
Okay.
I got no plans. I'm free tomorrow. I'm free Saturday. I'm free Sunday. I got time Monday.
Braylon, let's pass it off to Jason for a sec.
Hi, Ravi.
Hi, Jason.
Hey, thank you so much. I was actually really touched by a few of your statements, so sorry to chime in. And I think we're living in a very strange world right now, not only for this coronavirus, but in the past few years. And I also don't believe that, the idea of politics can solve anything at our kind of situation. which I do believe that we are living in a world that's completely constructed by aesthetics. In that line, I think we also put a lot of social responsibility to artists as well. From my discussions with my students and the colleagues, I think one of the most important issues that a lot of artists need to address is how to create a positive imagination, a positive idea to imagine a positive future. And you touched a few of the points regarding empowerment, and from your artistic perspectives, I'm just wondering if you can elaborate a little more about, I don't know, like how can we imagine a positive future? This is a question that I think a lot of young people are struggling.
How do we imagine a future?
A positive imagination.
Positive future?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's the best question. You're young people.
I'm not that
good. You are. If you guys don't do it, we're dead. We are so dead. Oh my God. You have to bring it. I mean, shit. You know, it kind of goes back to the question around structures or whatever. Like, look at your generation. Look at Parkland. Look at the environmental movement that was made by young people. Like, if you guys, people are listening to you, man. Like, holy shit. Generations before me were screaming about misogyny in the arts. They were screaming about racism in the arts. Now people listen. Now you can say white privilege and people will listen to you and they hear you. Not everybody, but that language is accepted now. That language is part of a conversation now. People had to die for that. Literally, they had to die. They lost their careers for that. So you're living in a time when you are so like you're on steroids, you're the Hulk. So go flex, be free. You know, this is the time to iterate, to be free. When you get older, you stay open. Come on, I can't diss my old pals here. It's the time. The time is now. The time is genuinely now. If you don't, holy cow! Look, the history of the world. The history of the world. Universities of all places were the bedrock of revolutions. 1968 in France, everybody talks about that. That was the universities. In San Francisco, the hippies, universities, you know, the kids in high school in Parkland. Guys, it's your time. Take it now. Fuck. I'm waiting, you know, like I think I said this to Braylon, you know, for me, when I was younger, I was always chasing at the old folks like, guys, your shit is whack. That play I saw was crap. It was boring. It was fucking unimaginative. And I'll show you something better. And part of what fueled my creativity was I got to do better than what came before me. That's my responsibility. And I honor and respect absolutely the elders who died for me and the work that they made and the privileges that I inherit for that. But it's on me to build better for the next generation. And that's the interlocular I think that we're in generation that we need to hold on to, is we got to push against each other to find that. You know, I have experience in years that allow me a perspective, and you have naivete and newness on your side. And in the collision of that comes something, that a world we didn't dream of. If we're not all in search for a world we didn't dream of, I really don't know what the fuck we're doing. I really don't. I just like stasis is what we want. I mean, it's not what I want. And look, you know what? If that's what you want, that's cool, people. Like that, I don't need to hang with you though. Because again, like I want to respect, not everybody has to believe what I believe, but I just know what I want and I want to go. And I want you to go, all of you, go, man. Push after me, call me crazy, call me old, outdated. with respect, of course. But at least, you know, we're driving, we're all in this for the best idea wins. And the challenge becomes our values. You know, what's amazing about the moment that we're in, when I say you have power, is part of this whole change is a massive shift in values. And that's the weird conversation we're in generationally around gender representation, around sexuality, ability, power, privilege. That's a whole values conversation. And if you all are at the closest to like the speed at how things are changing is in your social groups. Where I'm learning from you, the language, the speed at which it's going. And so anyways, it's you guys who have to do it. And yeah. And it's a lot of responsibility.
Thank you so much, Ravi. Such inspirational words, and you're seeing on the chain we're gonna remember this for a while. And luckily, we recorded it so we can share it to the people who weren't able to participate. Thank you so much, Ravi. Let's give our jazz hands and more.
Thank you all. Thanks. I appreciate listening to my rants.
For those to whom we didn't get to your questions, maybe we'll send them them to you since you have some time.
Yeah, is that okay?
Go for it.
And
Jonathan, we'll
from both the group chat and the Slack channel, I'm going to ask all non-Making the Future students to drop off in this point, with the exception of Doug Tyndall. Doug has agreed, and you'll understand why, to join us, stay with us for a few minutes afterwards. So we're going to I'm going to take a 3-minute break. I want to capture this momentum, this energy that you've kind of blasted at us, and this responsibility that you've blasted at us, and do something with it. But maybe some of us have to go to the bathroom and things like that. So,
the revolution will happen after you pee.
So everyone who's not a Making the Future student or super auditor, TA, or Doug Tyndall, thank you for joining us, and we'll keep you posted about future events, and the rest of us will come back in about 3 minutes.
Hey, thanks so much. Real quick, I just want to say something. So I put in, thank you for all your thank yous, and I put in our website, www.whynot.theater. So this is another thing. The guy who chose our website is a young guy. And I was like, why not .theater? How are people going to know? I mean, he's a young guy. He's cutting the edge. I don't know shit anymore. Like, go do it. Okay. Awesome.
Thanks so much, Ravi.
Thank you all. Bye.
Thanks,
Ravi. See you in a few minutes.
See you in a bit.